So today is a special anniversary. Exactly 40 years ago today, February 6th, 1982, the greatest finish in Ironman history. They were separated by only 29 seconds. It was the closest race in Ironman World Championship history. And the 40 years later, we are lucky enough to have both of them here to go through a little traverse through memory lane. Please give it up for Kathleen McCartney and Julie Moss. I get this seat. Guys, will you guys grab your own seat wherever you want, man? This is your world. We're just visiting. How fun, huh? Does it seem like, let's see, it's 5:30, been about 2:30 in the afternoon.
Things were going good. I was on fire.
You were on fire. You were like just going, I'm just going to trot to the finish line here. There's no problem at all. So Julie, talk a little bit about when did you find out about this crazy sport? Because we're talking 82. The event started in 78, so it hadn't been around very long. When did you hear about it?
I heard about it through the lifeguard connection, through the San Diego State lifeguards. These were a lot of good college swimmers who didn't have anything to do once they got out of college. And so they were lifeguarding, and they did lifeguard competitions. And Scott Tinley, being a lifeguard, he started doing triathlons, and I liked lifeguards. So...
As well you should.
So as it was a trickle-down effect, and I kind of heard about this event and thought, that sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But that's how I heard about it. The first time I heard about it was through lifeguards.
And Kath?
I heard about it at Whiskey Creek in Mammoth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
That's a bar.
Yeah. Yeah. So I heard about it from a guy that had done Ironman before, and that's where I heard about it for the first time. That was in 1980.
And you saw it. Did you see the event in 81?
I did. So I went to watch the event in 1981, and I'd never really seen a triathlon before. And before the gun went off, when I was standing on the seawall, I decided that I was going to do it the next year.
And did you have a background, swim, bike, run?
No.
Nothing?
No, just a big dream.
A big dream. And Julie, for you, you obviously had a swim background.
Well, I didn't say I was a lifeguard.
Oh, you just hung out with lifeguards. Okay.
No, I did not have a swim background, but I had a surfing background. I started surfing when I was 13, 14 years old. So I was comfortable in the ocean, but I liked something under me floating me.
And so, Kath, when you make the decision, okay, I'm going to do this event, it's not like there was books out or there was anything online to train. How did you figure out how to train for this crazy thing?
I was a college student. I was working a couple jobs, and just like everyone else, you just put your priorities in order, and you find a good support team around you, and just kind of got in with a group of guys that was just they're out there training. So I learned how to ride a bike really well, kind of like a bike racer.
Okay.
So that was kind of like what really helped me a lot, and I started doing mega miles on the bike, and then I just found that I loved to push myself, and I just discovered some endurance that was probably a God-given gift.
And how old were you guys when you went over there for the first time?
20.
I just turned 23. You were
22,
still 22.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, and Julie, when you wanted to sign up for this thing, of course, you had to go through the lottery and you had to figure it out. How did you just?
Oh, no lottery.
Okay.
No, I opened my laptop and I went to Peekers and I got a great training program. I wish. No, it was because, it was out in the ether. Like, there's this crazy race in Kona and you can sign up for it. So you had to write a letter.
Yes.
You had to fill out a form and write a letter and ask and
Valerie
send in your
Silk.
check for $85.
Yes. Yeah, $85. It was $85. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no qualifications necessary.
No.
It was wide open.
Yes, it was. And we think about it. See, in 78 and 79, those 15 starters and 12 finishers. It went up to 108 in 80. And by the time you guys went, it was like
500.
500.
560.
No, 360
Yeah,
something.
it went 360, and then it jumped up in the following
Yeah,
October.
because of our,
Because of you
yeah,
guys,
yeah.
exactly. You guys spurred it on.
I should have brought my original results that I had on that weird paper that
I know.
printed out on
I've
that
got that. Yeah,
computer.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was the 5th anniversary, so the Ironman had only been run 5 times.
Exactly.
That's kind of wild, and
And
only on the Big Island for 2
There was
years.
a second year
Yeah.
that was on the Big Island. And so you came over, but this was part of was it a master's thing or was it a?
Well, no, it was an undergraduate degree, but I was in, it would be called kinesiology now. Before then, it was physical education. And I watched the 1981 Ironman, and this hot guy, crazy hair, but hot guy named John Howard, was running like a gazelle, a graceful gazelle through the lava fields, having been a Pan American cyclist, and I'm laughing.
of the
John was
70s.
pretty awkward on the run,
Yes.
but he was his determination and his ferocity.
Yes.
Is that a word? Anyway, he was ferocious and in his determination to get to the finish line, and I was very impressed watching
Yeah.
that. It stuck with me. I didn't want it to, but it stuck with me. Watching that event, I thought it was kind of insane and crazy, and the way the ABC cameras came in on the athletes' faces, and you saw them suffer, rather than just like, oh no, I was drawn into that. There was something in my soul that said, I want to test myself on some level. It was just there, lurking. The seed was planted, and without any experience in running or cycling or swimming, I signed up.
Well, and so Julie watched it on TV.
Yeah.
You were there live, and you could feel the
Oh, yeah.
energy.
I could feel it in the morning while everybody was just assembling in the water. And I just was like, I want to be there, like with nerves and like excitement and
Yeah.
doing something that seemed impossible and accomplish something that I never thought I could do. And so it was immediate. Like the gun went off and I was like, okay, this is my dream.
The 81, so I was racing the 81 race as well, and the year before we swam in this Ala Moana channel. So when we came over in 81, we're swimming at Kailua Pier, right? Well, a couple days before the race, you guys have been over there, you see the waves breaking over the wall, right? And I was with this friend of mine, and she just looked at me, and I'm petrified. I'm like, I'm going to die tomorrow. And she just looks at me and goes, wouldn't drowning be the worst way to die? Thank you for that. That's a big help. I think that's good. So in terms of getting a bike and figuring out what to wear, what did you do, Jules, in terms of getting a...
Well, it was a very small little community, so we'd reach out to each other, like, how are you training? And these lifeguards kind of knew each other.
Yeah.
And we'd heard that Kathleen was getting sponsorship.
What?
And so we thought, well, you can ask people to pay for your trip to Kona. So I thought, that sounds like a great idea. So I started writing letters to Dole Pineapple,
They're on Hawaii. Why not?
to the Bank of Hawaii. Oh, I'm sorry. Our fiscal budget was set months ago. I mean, I got all these rejection letters, but I did get a bar, not Whiskey Creek, but a bar in Carlsbad to pay for my flight. Oh, and Jazzercise turned me down, which was so cool when we got to go and speak into their national convention, Kathleen and I.
And told them they turned me down. Nice.
Exactly. No, so I had a sponsorship. I think it was $250 to pay for my flight.
And you were, like a lot of people go over now and they stay in Kailua Kona. They stay close by. You weren't staying close by.
No, I contacted the Department of Corrections and asked for parolees. No, I ended up staying with this woman who was, she might have been one, but she ended up volunteering to put somebody up in her house. And so I stayed there with she and several children that were running around. It was a little wild, yeah.
How far from the city, though?
I was actually up above Turtle Beach.
So how far?
5 miles.
Oh, 5 miles. That's not that bad.
No.
Yeah. But that week, you probably did more training than you had in your whole life.
Well, I actually got to go to Hawaii about almost 3.5 weeks early. And in those 3.5 weeks, I did all of my training for Kona. Well, why do it at home when it's not as nice? I mean,
Right.
no, I hadn't really done much. I'd done some running, and I actually completed 2 marathons before landing there. But I had never done the full bike distance or the full swim distance
Right.
before getting to Kona.
Yeah, well, I do that beforehand.
And
It makes
so
no sense.
I did the opposite of what you're supposed to do. Obviously, you're supposed to be tapering those 3 weeks. I crammed in all my miles.
Yes. One other thing, when you mentioned John Howard.
Oh, Johnny.
So John came over in 1980, and he was a cyclist of the 70s, Pan American Games gold medalist, amazing cyclist. And everybody thought he was going to win the race. There was 108 people there. This Dave Scott was some swim instructor. Nobody really knew much about him, but John Howard was a cycling legend. The only problem is John Howard couldn't swim. No idea. His swim time was 1:53, right? 1:53, and this is in the Bay. This is like not a Waikiki rough water swim. He'd still be out there. But yeah, so John ended up finishing third or fourth that year, and basically decided, I got to learn how to. If I want to win this race, I've got to figure out how to swim and figure out how to run. And he took an hour off his swim, and he took about the same amount off his run, and he won the following year. But he did not look great on the run.
No, but I wanted to send out just everyone send good energy to John Howard. He had a bike crash.
Oh no!
Recently, and he's got some splintered ribs and punctured things, and so send or if you know him on Facebook or Instagram, send him a message of support and love because he could use some fast healing right now.
Well, and also back then there weren't a lot of women in the race, right? How many? Do you remember how many women? There was not that many in the race. But Julie, from the women you were talking to, was Kathleen sort of the favorite going in?
Oh yeah. I mean, look at her. 40 years later, she looks exactly the same. She had the blonde hair, and she was totally put together. And she looked like she could have been Miss America / Christy Brinkley / athlete.
Wow.
No, seriously.
You were pretty color coordinated.
I was. I had matching hair ribbons and such, but I did train really hard.
Yeah.
And I had done like Santa Barbara half Ironman in 1981. I won that, and the Super Frog. I won that, and 100 mile bike race. So I trained really hard. Like I had this dream to go to Kona, and I thought my original goal was I just want to finish. I just want to get across the finish line. But then as the harder I trained and the harder I worked, the faster I got. And then over the months, I just kept paring down my time goal, and then I started winning everything. And so I went into Kona feeling like, yeah, I think I could do this. I think I could win. I did my homework.
Did you know Julie?
I had heard of Julie. Like I had heard of, she was definitely one of the people on my radar. Like Julie, Sean Wilson, Pat Hines. Yeah. So there are a handful of women that, you hear about, and I definitely thought, Julie could win the race. Yeah.
Now, didn't you guys say, wasn't there a time trial on the course like a week beforehand?
Yeah. We did a 112-mile bike time trial race.
The week before. The week before.
Yeah.
Wait, don't you guys do that? Just go out, yeah.
So it was amazing, and I think I did a 5:15, and I was like, okay, I'm ready.
I'm ready. And Julie?
Yeah.
I can't remember what I did. But because I didn't have a rental car and I was staying way outside of Kona, this was a couple weeks earlier, I got a ride from the family I was staying with to between about 35 and 40 miles from the start. So I had to ride 35 or 40 miles at dark 30 to get to the start of our time trial.
Pretty amazing.
So, I won on miles, but Kathleen won on time.
Yeah. So race day, out of the water, Julie goes 1:11, Kathleen goes 1:32.
I was about as bad as John Howard.
Yeah. So you've got it, but meanwhile you're chasing Pat Hines. I think you caught her right in a run.
Yeah, I caught her when she was pulling off to DNF.
Right.
She had an injury going into the race, but I was having the best time on the bike ride, I have to say.
Yeah.
Being out there, and the ABC camera trucks were coming. And, it is pretty wild, Kathleen, to think that you were there watching on the seawall. I was there watching in San Luis Obispo on a rainy afternoon. Yeah. And that we both had this weird idea to be there. Yeah. And here we are in the heat of this battle. And I mean, now I think about it, I think that's pretty crazy. It's pretty greatly crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, the bike ride was uneventful.
Right.
The only problem was I had only brought one thing of nutrition because where were you going to put it? I didn't have pockets. It was just I had a little bag, and I had a Snickers bar.
That was it
That was it.
for
And I had 2
112
water
miles.
bottles.
Yeah,
2 water bottles.
but you drank them.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I started to eat my Snickers bar because I knew it was pretty dense calories. But that's when ABC camera truck came up and wanted to film me, and it was like melting. And I couldn't manage it. And I thought, I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to be on ABC's Wild Sports. And so I threw away. I didn't even try and eat it. I threw it away. And
But you look good.
I look great. I had on a skateboarding helmet with holes drilled in it for extra ventilation.
Nice.
Sitting up on my bike. Aerodynamic? No. You sit up and you weigh.
That is
Vintage.
great. And Kath, were you getting splits? Did they even have something? Do you have any clue
No, I
where
mean,
Julie was?
We didn't have any splits.
No.
I had a watch, and I was pretty mindful, looking at my watch, and I think I had. Did I have a race computer? Do we have those little things?
I don't think we
I don't
did,
know.
no.
You didn't have race computers?
No.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of saw mile markers and time.
Right.
And I thought I felt pretty good. I started off really weak. Going into it, I'd been in the hospital a few days before the race.
Wait, for what?
For food poisoning, but I thought it was actually nerves.
Okay.
When I went to the party and I met Julie, then I was in the hospital the next day.
I have that effect on men and women.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, here's my competitors, and I thought it was like all relaxed, but I actually was a basket case in my head.
Wow.
And I got so sick the next day that I had to be hospitalized because my
Nerves,
veins
that's
clot,
wild.
and I thought it was food poisoning. I thought, oh my God, I ate some bad food at the party. So I got out of the hospital like the day before the race, and my day built.
Yeah, because you were still
I was
20 minutes
hadn't
or so
eaten
down
in
off
a
the
few
bike.
days, and
Yeah, so you're still 20 minutes or
Yeah.
so down off the bike.
Oh yeah, I was 21 minutes down off the bike, but my game plan changed. I'm like, all I care about is finishing. Like,
Right.
I came here with my dream to finish the Ironman. I probably am not going to be able to win because of my hospitalization and
Right.
sickness, but I want to finish.
Right.
So I just did the best I could, and it all worked out.
So back then, the turnaround was this huge Bud Light can, right? This is out there, and you turn around and you come back. And so, Julie, you must have, on the way, after going around the can, you're on the way back, and you see Kathleen. How'd she look?
Fabulous. Again. You did have your hair up in a ponytail,
Yeah.
and she had this darling little all-white tank top and shorts, and she was just hammering down the road.
Right.
And I was now the wheels were starting to come off, and so I thought I was holding it together to get past her, so it kind of scare her a little. Did it work?
I was feeling pretty confident. I mean, you didn't even wave or smile.
No, I was in the dark zone.
Yeah.
So, and then, this was before sports bras and things like that, right? So you had to.
You have to bring that up.
Of course. When you come into transition, was it in transition where you pointed at a volunteer and what'd you say to her?
From bike to run, I went to put on my bra before I put on my little tank top, and it broke. It had a little snap in the front, plastic snap, and I was probably rushing because I'm now realizing I'm at the front of this race that I had no idea I was going to be, and it broke. And so I have no bra. And so I just looked, there was these 2 little volunteers, and one was little and one was a bigger lady. And so I looked at the small lady, I said, "Can I have your bra?" And she took about 2 seconds and just took off her T-shirt and took off her bra and handed it to me, and I put it on, and off I went, running.
I like that.
I never returned her bra, and I didn't take time to adjust her straps, and that came back to haunt me in those final yards because those straps kept falling. They kept falling, and then I kept falling, but we're jumping ahead.
Now, when did you start feeling feeling ownership of this race? So like you said, you weren't thinking, I'm going to win this, but now you're leading by a good margin.
Yeah, leading from 6 miles to 26 miles. I was really working on ownership. And it's wild to think that when we talk about endurance events, Ironman events change you. It changed. I was feeling the change, not because I felt good. I've never felt worse, but because I found that there was this part of me that deserved to keep trying as hard as I could.
Yeah.
That was the piece for me. You deserve to be as best as you can be.
Right.
You deserve to maybe get that moment of coming across the finish line and throwing your arms up in the air. And as you all know, when you get into the depths of the races that you do, you start forgetting about how you look or what other people think. You are so focused on how can I get one foot in front of the other. And that process matured me, changed me, made me realize that as the layers peel off and the ego gets shredded and you are down to the essence of who you are, that desire to keep fighting is everything. And it totally changed me. And it was so unexpected. I didn't know that existed within me. I didn't know that deep within me there was this fighter.
Right.
So that I discovered. I knew that was happening. And then I wanted to hang on to it.
Of course.
So then it becomes this desperation to hang on to something that I've discovered. It's like it's leaving me, I grab onto it. And I find a way to keep going. And it's starting to leave, and I have to keep hanging on to it. And it was this over and over process. And I'm sure, Kathleen, you had that same experience of having to keep digging to catch me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you can never, ever, ever give up. Like, you can't give up. You have to go with every step,
Right,
all the way through the finish line. Like the old saying, it's never over till it's over, right? And Julie gave it everything she had, and so did I. And if either of us would not have reached those deep moments where we're going to dig deep for every last bit of energy, things would have been different.
So, Julie, when you come onto a lead drive, you're just a couple hundred yards from the finish. And were you mentally aware that basically your body is, at that point, just saying no mas?
Well, no. I mean, I was still thinking I had more, and I thought, let me just get to that downhill, that long downhill, and then I'll get a break. I can recover a little bit. Well, that long downhill started to do something to my internal blender of a gut. So now it's a double-edged sword. Yes, I'm getting to run a little faster. I'm getting to run a little freer, and I'm about to explode. And so, yeah, I had the wherewithal to think, I've used that Sizzler bathroom at the bottom of this hill for weeks now. I'm going to go use it. And then as I got closer, and I thought, and what are you going to do when you're in the Sizzler and the ABC camera that won't leave you alone follows you into the Sizzler, and now you're in the bathroom, and they say, get out here, Kathleen McCartney's now in the lead. I imagine that whole thing in the space. If you've been to Kona, there's a downhill, and that whole scenario played out in my mind.
Yeah,
I skipped the Sizzler. I made it around onto Kuakini. No, is that not Kuakini? Kualalai, and then the next turn. And when my legs collapsed, they just went out from under me. So did everything that should have been left in the Sizzler. And now I've got the most excruciating humiliation that you could ever imagine on national TV. And I'm thinking, I can still get up and finish this. This is horrible, but winning's going to make it better. And then I can't get up. My legs aren't letting me get up.
Like Bambi is like, and everybody watching on TV is just going, you just walk. And it seemed like every time you got up, it was like, okay, I'm going to run now.
But again, that's where those layers, I thought I'd been through all the layers. I would just get to that downhill and it'll be okay. No, there was a whole nother journey of self-discovery that came with fear and fighting that and thinking, how can I get up?
Right.
And I thought, I haven't used my arms really. So I just figured out to put my arms in front of me and lean on my arms and get my legs under me so I could stand up. And that was a victory.
Right.
And then I could get up, and Kathleen still isn't here, so I've got to keep trying. I've got 400 meters left to run. And so every time I try and run, I'd make it a few feet and I would hit the ground again. And my legs were not supporting running. Walking was an option, but my mind didn't allow me to think about that. It was only about this kind of like this fighting. The fight was there. I didn't have that. At this point, I didn't have I guess kind of that ability to say, you would probably be better off instead of spending all this time trying to get up off the ground if you just walked. I didn't have that.
Right.
It was either run or fight to get up. Run, fight to get up.
And Kath, you had been there the year before, so you knew the energy that's on Elite E Drive.
Right.
And now you're coming in what you think is second
Right,
place
right.
and turn on the Elite E Drive,
Right.
and it's
Right.
silent.
Right, for sure. So there's a corner as we turn on to Elite E Drive that we call Hot Corner.
Right.
And there are usually like people there cheering you on, and you only have a quarter mile to go, and you just kind of like float down Elite E Drive to the finish line, right? So I had never given up on trying to catch Julie, but I was kind of like, wow, I haven't caught her by now. Sheesh, I guess, boy, I only have, a quarter mile left to go. This is not looking too good, but I'm going for it. So when I get to the hot corner and I'm expecting people to be cheering and yelling and encouraging, and it was just kind of like this quiet, people were just kind of like...
They were in shock.
They were in shock because Julie had just fallen down. I didn't know. I thought Julie was feeling maybe like I felt, I depleted, but like giving it all I had. So Julie had just fallen down. They're probably cheering for her. I saw it on TV. I'm like, they're emotionally spent,
Yep.
Emotionally invested, and they didn't care about seeing me or cheering me on. And I was kind of bewildered. And then in the silence, someone from the crowd just shouted out some encouragement to me. And they just said, Kathleen, you can catch her. Like, she's up there. Like, come on, you can do it. You can catch Julie. And like this adrenaline I've like just kind of filled me up. And I thought, well, I think I'm going as fast as I can, but like, let me see if I've got a turbo gear. So I just like dug like, in different ways. Julie and I were just digging deeper again, finding the strength, finding the power. So I just kind of like discovered a turbocharge, even though my legs were so fatigued. Like I felt like I had enough lung capacity, but I couldn't get my legs going fast enough to even make me like anaerobic or out of breath. But I just like thought, okay, this is your moment. Like, listen to that wonderful encouragement.
And then you get to the finish line.
And then I'm running along, I'm running fast, and it's dark. I'm kind of looking at the clock only because it was like we finished at 6:09 p.m. in Hawaii. So I'm kind of like, oh my God, it's almost 6:09.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah. I'm just kind of really feeling this energy. I'm just remembering it. So it's so vivid. And I'm running, and I'm looking for Julie, and I don't, it's dark. And as I approach what I think should be the finish line, there's like bright lights in the trees. And I'm like, I couldn't even see the finish line.
Right.
It's not like it is now, people. Like, I didn't know what to expect. I think it was literally just like people holding a little banner, but I didn't think about that I'd be coming in the dark and not knowing where the finish line was. So I'm running, and there are bright lights everywhere. And then all of a sudden I just stop. And I had to stop and say, hey, where's the finish line? And I had just apparently passed Julie, which I was completely unaware of. Because you don't
look down.
I don't look for my competition on the ground. And so I I just stopped and I asked where the finish line was, and all of a sudden the ABC's like, "Oh, who's this chick?" You know, they hadn't filmed me all day, and they're literally right here, and they had to like speed up to get out of the way. So then I just took a few more steps, and they go, "You're the winner!" And they put the thing over my neck and the medal and the flowers, and they're telling me I'm the champion. I'm like, I'm going for it. I'm going to like laugh and raise my arm over and get all excited and enjoy this. But I was never more perplexed in my life. Like,
Yes.
I know I didn't pass Julie, and I just didn't know how I got there. So then I just like took in this exhilarating moment, and then just, you know.
Now, did you watch as Julie crawled in?
You know what? I kind of turned around, and it was like I couldn't really
Yeah.
still see all this, like Julie.
There was so
right?
much commotion.
There's so much commotion.
Yeah.
And it was just like, then Julie got carried away, and I'm like, wait, like what happened? Like
On a
Julie's
stretcher.
being transported off, and I'm like, wait, what happened to Julie? And like, oh my God. So I kind of learned bits and pieces of it. I never got to see Julie that night. No one could really explain to me what happened because not everybody saw it. Like people that were at the finish line didn't see what happened. So
No.
I didn't truly know until I watched it on television.
Exactly. And the amazing part is you see Kathleen jumping up and down, and when they tell her she won, and then the camera zooms back, and then you see Julie crawling. And if we think back, when Dave Scott won in 1980, and then he had to go cool down afterwards, and John Howard was a Pan American Games gold medalist, people really couldn't relate to those athletes. They were uber athletes. These guys could have been babysitters for your kid, right? They were college kids who were doing something that was epic. So people watching at home who couldn't really relate to it before, now they're watching Julie and seeing her crawling to the finish line and thinking, this event is crazy, this event is nuts, and what is it about this finish line that's so special that someone will crawl to get there? And that's why this moment became so special. Another aspect of that was there was a separate crew besides ABC's crew called Freewheeling Films that was on the course that day. And Valerie Silk, the owner of the Ironman, these guys called up and said, we'd like to film the event. And Valerie said, I have a deal with ABC. I really can't do that. And they said, oh, we're friends with ABC. They won't mind. So they brought out Bruce Dern to be the commentator, and they're filming, and the guy from ABC, the producer, is all upset. And while Julie's crawl is happening, Valerie is in this production trailer being screamed at by the producer from ABC going, we will never be back. You violated your contract. The Ironman is history with ABC. And the assistant to the producers, you need to come out and see this. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He says, no, not now. They had no idea. Valerie never saw it. And when she came out of the trailer, someone said, Julie's in medical and would like to talk to you. And I think you mentioned, hey, I'd like to come back next year. And Valerie's thinking to herself, there won't be a next year. We're done. The ABC is cutting us off. So then when they got home and realized what they had, because ABC Wild World of Sports back then would do 20-minute segments. And then here's a 20-minute segment on the Ironman. Here's Julie being carried off on a stretcher. And they go to ice dancing or roller derby or something else. And people watching at home had no idea if this young woman was alive or dead. So the phone lines at ABC lit up like a Christmas tree. And the following weekend, these two were flown to New York to be on ABC Wild World of Sports with the dean of Wild World of Sports,
Howard Cosell.
Jim
Jim
McKay.
McKay, sorry.
With
You're more like Howard Cosell.
That's right. With Jim McKay to assure the American public that this sport doesn't kill people, and Julie was not dead. And now, had you guys been to New York before and in a limo and all this stuff?
I mean, they just held nothing back, and they treated us so beautifully and so greatly. We flew first class. We stayed at the plaza. We had room service. They gave us a limo. I mean, and to be interviewed by Jim McKay, I mean, that was really one of the most spectacular things I'd ever experienced.
Yeah, they showed the first time we'd seen it again because we didn't have replay. So we were watching it for the first time since we'd done it. And I'm watching it and I started crying.
Yes.
Yeah, it was so emotional. I mean, again, when you start to, you've got this trigger now of like, oh my God, it wasn't like it was so scary. It was like, that was just such a profound, deep experience. I haven't even processed it yet, and now it's being shown. And I'm focusing on the stuff that was kind of hard and humiliating, and thinking, does it show on TV? Oh yeah, oh it shows. And so I mean, for a while, that deep kind of self-discovery was masked with the thing every typical young woman is like, oh my God, this was so. That was kind of awful. So it took me a long time to kind of get past what it looked like and keep reminding myself what it felt like. And it must have been a pretty good feeling that it's lasted 40 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you? Yeah. How about a round of applause?
Oh, wow.
How long did it take you to own that?
Oh, years.
Yeah.
Years. I think really when Kathleen and I came back to Kona together in 2012, it was a chance to come back and honor everything that we had set in motion, everything that had gone on and become, just so amazing about our sport. The Olympics had happened, all these interesting things, but to come back and get to be an athlete again in my 50s and to think about, that was a beautiful way to kind of honor everything that we'd done, was to be the athlete again and to kind of think about wanting to go to those depths again, but to understand that I'm willing to work really hard for them for like a year and a half for them before I even try this again.
And you guys obviously connected forever, right? That's just one of those things. Yeah. And Julie, you're the Crawl of Fame, as your book is called. That became as part of, if everybody watched ABC Wide World of Sports, they'd have this vignette where they'd have the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. And that was every single week that you had to watch that.
Okay, so sitting here and listening to Kathleen talk about your experience at the finish, I'm thinking, God, I hope I saw it as joy on your, unbridled joy. I hope you really got that to sink in, because talk about someone coming and raining on your Ironman win. It was all about, but what about that girl who crawled? So I'm sitting here for the first time thinking, God, I know you did, because I know you. But it would have been nice to have just had that to yourself, too. I wanted it. I was happy to leave you behind.
In a heartbeat. Yeah. You would have stepped on her if you saw her trying to crawl to the line before you.
No, I wouldn't have. I would have made it some grand gesture like I was helping you up, but kind of kept you behind.
Yeah.
But the great thing about that moment, the sport was growing, but not at an exponential rate. We're talking about, because of that, they started an event called the United States Triathlon Series that launched in June of '82. They did a second Ironman in October, realizing that this sport now is something that everybody around the world wants to do. And when it's in February, people around the world really can't train for it. So that led to the event going from 300-400 entrants to 800 entrants to selling out. And you two were the stars of the United States Triathlon Series. And that's what the other aspect of this was. It really showed that women were going to have an equal place in this brand new sport. How about a round of applause for that? Because that's exactly what you guys did, right? You changed what had been sort of a male-dominated sport to, hey, it doesn't matter. Everybody's suffering out here, right? So it's...
Right. Yeah, I feel very proud of that, the fact that Julie and I had the opportunity, this time and space and history, to be pioneers and also to make a difference for our sport, for women.
Right.
And to keep doing it. I mean, it's 40 years today since that life-changing, right now, since that life-changing decision. And it's, I'm so grateful that it's such a huge part of my life and always will be.
So Kathleen ran 3:46.28 and went 11:09.40, and Julie ran 4:05.30 and went 11:10.09, 29 seconds. Still the closest finish in Ironman World Championship history. How about a round of applause for Julie and Kathleen? You guys are the best.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you.
It's always so much fun.
TCSD.